All right, team, you guys ready to go?
I'm ready to rock and roll.
Get started.
Do this.
All right. Well, first things first, I want to, give everybody a happy afternoon and thank you for joining us. My name is Nate and I am Foster Strong. I hope you have been enjoying the conference so far and thank you for attending. We got a lot of good stuff for you today. And so the first thing today is we're going to talk about removing stigmas and changing the narrative of current youth in care and for alumni. We will discuss labels and how language plays an important part in creating and removing stigmas. So my team and I are all former foster youth. And you will have the opportunity to meet them in just a second. As you can see, they're on the screen. You'll have a moment to get a little more personal with them. If you have any questions, please toss them into the Q&A box. And at the end, we'll be doing a Q&A. So today we will be telling you how we are working towards claiming our stories, uplifting and advocating for change as an organization and as individuals. So as of right now, let's go one by one and let's meet the team.
Hi, everybody. My name is Greene, and I am from Costa Mesa, California. I spent time in foster care from the ages of 8 until 13 in the Orange County system. I'm now 23 and I'm living in Denver, Colorado, and I'm working as a director's assistant.
Hello, everybody. My name is Slam Anderson. My pronouns are she and her. I'm from Alachua/Gainesville area. I went into foster care when I was 8 years old and aging out at 17 in the Alachua County system. I am a program director for a nonprofit organization, Kitchen Table Literary Arts Center, as well as a spoken word artist, and I'm just happy to be here.
Hey guys, another foster kid from Florida. My name is Candy Marie. I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida. I relocated to Los Angeles, California. I grew up in the foster care system in Jacksonville from the age of 7 to 17 years old. And I took my dreams to LA to pursue acting, hosting, and producing. And I'm a proud member of Foster Strong.
And I am so shocked that Candy didn't say foster warrior because that is her term. She is the queen of that. Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Richmond. I am out here on the East Coast where the sun is slowly setting. So if I have a dark screen soon, that's because it's basically nighttime already here. I originally am from the Midwest where I spent 5 years in and out of foster care. And as soon as I was done with college, I ran for the East Coast, and so I'm out here in Washington, D.C., where I serve as the executive director of Foster Strong, and I also am an advocate and lobbyist for vulnerable children and families. So we are so happy you all are here with Foster Strong today, and before we dive into this robust discussion on changing the narrative, we wanted to give you just a quick overview of what Foster Strong is, and we thought that the best way to do that was to tell you our mission. And that is to rewrite the narrative in foster care by authentically sharing our own journeys of moving from trauma to triumph. We were already triumphant. Let's just recognize that. So we're going to dive into that today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie. Before we kind of jump into the discussion about removing stigmas, I wanted to briefly ask you guys, what misconceptions or stereotypes have you experienced, or which ones have you heard of directed towards youth in foster care? And Mairead, if you'd like to start off our discussion.
Sorry, there was a siren going by. For me, I feel like the biggest stigma that was placed on me when I was younger was that because my biological parents were drug addicts, that I was destined to be a drug addict as well. Also, like when I got a little bit older in foster care, there's a big one where I had a bad attitude, or that I was ungrateful, or that I was kind of a problem child, when that wasn't necessarily the case, because I know that I wasn't hurting anybody, but it was just, I was a teenager. I was doing normal teenage behavior, and it kind of just had this huge foster kid label on it. So yeah, those are the ones that apply to me.
Yeah, and how about you, Slam?
I think the ones that stuck out to me the most was being called bad, or being a disciplinary issue, because I grew up I went in foster care with my siblings, and it was really hard to place us. It's hard to place a sibling group. It was 5 of us all together. So we did have to move. And when you move around, you get labeled as just being hard, or, that's why you have to move so much, because you're bad or because you're acting out, and not saying we're not bad, we're not acting out, but we're moving because they just can't find a placement that can keep us longer than this amount of time, So I was just told I was bad. And when I got angry, I was told I was, had anger issues, so the stereotype is I'm bad, and, I'm a kid with anger issues now.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying, because I've had the same, ideas talked about me. But we're just kids. We're just, having emotions. We're just trying to figure out what's going on in our lives. And, unlike other children, where if they have those behavioral issues, they get sat down and talked to. A lot of the times they just take us and replace us, because whoever is supposed to be taking care of us at the time doesn't want to deal with whether it's our emotions, whether it's us, just being kids and figuring ourselves out. To kind of move forward, I had a question. As an adult, what are some of the stigmas and stereotypes you encounter when you're opening up and telling people, you drop the foster care bomb on them? And whether it's in, a relationship, a new relationship you're starting, or you're just talking to your coworkers about it. Carrie, can you please elaborate on this?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest ones I've encountered, and I know many of you can relate to, is that one where you say that you were in foster care and someone is so shocked and they're like, I cannot believe you're in foster care. You look so normal. How are you in foster care? And it makes me laugh, because I'm like, what does that mean? Like, were you expecting that I would have a tattoo across my chest that says no regrets? Or like, what are we saying here when we say, oh, you look so normal? I would never expect that you were in care. So that's a pretty common one. And I just love that you also asked and posed the question with relationships, because I think that's one for alumni that we don't talk about enough. And I certainly received the advice all the time growing up and getting into the dating scene that you want to look for someone who comes from a good family, and that basically, if you come from a good family, there's the stereotype that you're going to be a good partner and that you're going to be good at relationships. And so that was an obstacle I had to overcome. That no, just because I don't come from the greatest family growing up, that doesn't mean that I'm not necessarily going to succeed at relationships. Because what I really do think is that sometimes you meet people, most of the time, who have been in foster care, and they're some of the most emotionally intelligent people. They have really done the inner work that it requires to be a good partner in a relationship. They can show up and be vulnerable and really open themselves to love. And so I know we joke around on our team and have talked about this before, but that foster care bomb of going on a date, and maybe it's the first or second date, and people are talking about their family situation, and that seems like an icebreaker type conversation to have, and they ask, how many siblings do you have? And I remember feeling like, I don't, like, how do I answer this? Do I say like, here's my foster siblings, here's my adopted siblings, here's my birth siblings, and then we have to have the whole conversation about how I was in foster care and I have trauma and yada, yada, yada. So those are a couple of the stigmas, misconceptions, and stereotypes that stand out to me as an alumni.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Candy, would you like to continue this?
You know what? Honestly, I just want to say touche to everything that Carrie just said. Because, like, honestly, relationships is a very big one, because there's so many negative stigmas attached to being somebody who grew up in care, when you're dating as well. Like, for example, I actually been exploring the whole virtual dating world. I don't know if anybody out there has logged on to Hinge, because let's face it, COVID has really pushed us into that lane. So the question came up, this guy was like, my parents live here. And he was like, what about you? And I have no problem with being the awkward person. And I was just like, he was like, does your parents still live in Jacksonville? And I was like, no. And there was no there was no discussion after that. And it was hilarious. And I know he felt kind of like weird afterwards, but it was like, whatever. But I think it's very important that, we kind of debunk these myths, especially in these dating relationships. I know another one is that foster kids have baggage. You're damn right we might have just a little bit of baggage, but who doesn't have baggage? Or maybe we have mommy and daddy issues, but everybody has mommy and daddy issues. So it's always great when you drop that foster care bomb on somebody and you hear their response, especially in relationships. I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I do remember, even just being in school and, the teachers asking you, how was, your summer vacation? Where'd you go with your parents? Where's your favorite place to go with your parents? And just feeling that uncomfortability, and more times than not, I would just make something up just to not have to have all my classmates or have the teacher then question me about being in foster care. And it was just really awkward. So there is a lot of stereotypes that come with that. I didn't want to be viewed as a bad kid for not having parents. So I just made up little stories like that. And, it got me by through school. But that's just me. I know it's not just my story. I know a lot of former foster alumni and current foster care or current kids in care are experiencing this. But to move forward, so these stigmas and stereotypes is why it can be so hard to express ever being in foster care. People think they know you before ever even engaging with you. If they've heard that you're from foster care, they're already making those assumptions about you, which is not right. We shouldn't be doing that about anybody with any background or anything like that. We are all just humans. And it's kind of like the myth of your permanent record. If you've been in foster care, it's like it's going to follow you around forever, like this mythical creature. It's always going to be there. And when in reality we're all just learning. We're all just learning and growing as humans. As a kid, sometimes you get to the point, being in care, where you're just like, fine, you just throw your hands up, fine, you view me as this this bad kid or this stubborn kid or wherever it may be. I'm going to be that kid for you. Not realizing that kid has, is figuring themselves out. They're figuring out who they want to be. They're figuring out what they want to be in the future. They're thinking, why is this person viewing me like this? And eventually you get to the point where it's like, fine, I'm just going to be that person. And sorry, I'm getting a little emotional because I've been there. But these kids shouldn't be judged based off of how they have to live their lives and how they have to survive while they're trying to figure those things out, because they are just kids. So society stigmatizes youth in care as having a lot of baggage, not realizing that the bags we are carrying are not always ours. We have been holding and carrying someone else's bags. In order to remove this baggage and remove these stigmas, including self-identity, which is a big one for these kids growing up, is they are still figuring out themselves. And they're having these adults tell them, this is your background, this is where you're going to go. And that's not reality for them. It wasn't reality for me. I don't think it was reality for you guys either. So, the language and the perspective needs to change on how we discuss these issues. To move forward, I got a question for you, Slam. So how can we as a community remove these stigmas and stereotypes?
Well, I think the way we can assist and help with moving these stigmas, these stereotypes, and these misconceptions in our community, and of course by community, I'm talking about everyone that's here, everyone who's involved or affected by the child welfare or foster care system. Emphasis on foster care system. And to change these stigmas, I believe we have to start with ourselves. When I worked at a youth summer program for teens, going and transitioning into high school, it was a week-long overnight, and one of the first things they tell us to do is check our biases. Because whether we want to admit them out loud or not, we all have biases that we have to check. Before entering any new space, the first thing I do is I check myself. So how can we assist in removing stigmas? By changing our language and perspective, as Nate was saying, of youth in care and alumni, which to me is the scientific way of saying, check yourself. We have to check ourselves. Sometimes I feel like outsiders and people in our community mix their thoughts, their views, and their ideas of the foster care system with their views of the people the system was built to benefit. You know, we place the failures of the foster care system on the youth in care. You know, I have conversations with people about kids in care all the time, and the rhetoric is pretty much always the same. You know, they say, oh man, that foster care kid is bad. And I say, why? Why are they bad? And I'm always, and I was gonna say surprised, but I'm not surprised, but I'm always discouraged that the first comments are, the kid is bad, not the parents are bad, not the people who caused the situation bad, not the system, but the kid. So I say, why? And it's always the same thing, because, you know, they be fighting, they're runaways, you know, always got to move them around, they're juveniles, delinquents, acting up in school and all of that. And I say, well, how would you react if you were violently removed from your primary caregiver, placed in a room with video games and puzzles to distract you for what seems like at that time your worst nightmare, told not much of anything, and then placed in a situation that is worse than the one you were taken from? How would you react? You know, the one thing I knew about myself as a kid, and something I'm learning about other kids as I work with them more, is that kids don't act out for nothing. You know, there's always a reason. Now, maybe they overreact, you know, they overreact to small things. I'll give you that, but there's still a reason for that reaction, you know, and on top of that, their reaction can change or alter based on how the adult or the authority figure reacts to their reaction. And I know that sounds kind of confusing. I talk a little confusing when I talk, but basically what I'm saying is like, so if a kid falls down, right, and they scrape their knee, you know, and it's not a big cake, minor scrape, they get up, they dust their stuff off, they're fine, they're good to go, no tears, they're ready to go back and play again. And then the parent comes running over in a panic, oh my gosh, my baby, my poor baby, are you okay? The kid who was fine before now changed their reaction based on that parent or that authority figure. So now they're crying and they're frantic, even though they were fine. You know, there was nothing wrong with them, you know? And it's like, if we look at it in another way, you know, if I'm removed from my family and I get angry, or my grades start to fall, or I'm feeling disconnected and you tell me I'm bad, my reaction is that I'm a problem kid, or I need a diagnosis because I'm showing common emotions to an uncontrollable situation. Now I'm labeled as having anger issues and being a problem child because of my reaction to a common reaction to a terrible situation. Now I'm a delinquent because I was placed in a cause and effect situation, and I'm just trying to deal with the effects from this cause, you know. And then it's this reaction, but that is bad, basically. So they're saying how I'm reacting is bad. Not to mention that the funny thing is, and I'm pretty sure kids who are in care can probably relate to this, you all probably can, but other thing is, so if we do react, we bad. And if we don't react, it's still a negative spin, because now, oh, she's not showing a normal emotion. She must have a mental disorder or disturbance because I'm chilling. Now I'm not acting crazy, I'm just being calm, but you're still gonna find something to place on me. So my teen brain, my teen mind says, okay, then I guess I'm bad. If you're going to treat me like I'm bad for the common emotions that I'm having, I guess I'll be bad. And if I'm going to be bad, me as a teen, if I'm going to be bad, I'm going to be the baddest thing you ever seen in your life. I'm going to milk this badness, you know, because you're going to see me as that no matter what I do. You already see me as that, so I'm going to go ahead on and give it to you. And that's when we get to these kids who can't even find their own identity because they're already being placed and put in boxes before they even have a chance, you know. So then I say, well, what is the other side of that, Slam? If we're saying check ourselves and change our languages and our perspective, what is the other side of that? The other side, when we check ourselves as people engaging with these kids, as social workers, as caseworkers, when we engage with them, we may say to that kid, instead of you're bad and all that other stuff, we may say, you know what? You can be angry. Be angry. Get mad. Yell. Scream. I understand your grades are failing. Don't worry about that. That isn't your focus. You want to throw something here, throw that. You need to kick something here. It's safe. Kick that. You need to punch something here. This is safe. Punch that. You have a right to be angry. You have a right to be upset. You know, you're not alone. You know, get angry with them. I'm angry with you. You're not alone in how you're feeling, and you're not bad. for what you're feeling. You're not wrong for acting out. You're not wrong for wanting to throw that thing because you don't even know what to do with these emotions that you have, because you're too young to even understand some of the emotions that you're even getting. Because a lot of these kids get premature emotions they have yet to be able to understand they're getting. So how can you tell me how to react to something that I have never felt before, you know? So then instead of us labeling this person as bad, you know, and telling them and empowering them and saying, it's not your fault, I'm angry with you, you know, you're not acting any different from anyone else who would be placed in this situation. So now as a youth, I'm empowered by your reaction because you checked yourself. You checked your perspective. You chose the words you used when you spoke to me. And you're showing me now I can be empowered by your reaction, because you showed me by your reaction that I'm okay. That even though I'm angry, screaming, throwing things, I'm okay because it's okay. Because what I'm feeling is natural. So why overreact as a parent? Even though I'm angry, even though I know I don't know what's going to happen next, I'm not going in with any preconceived biases on who I am because I have reacted to the situation or the system, because the person, my support, showed me that I was okay for reacting like that. And so now I can move on knowing that it's okay to feel emotions and it's okay to react to them, because you're kids, you're going to do that, you're going to react, and you shouldn't be labeled as bad or a problem child or a delinquent when you do that. So changing our perspectives, our language, how we talk to, for, and about youth in care and alumni. You know, and as kids in foster care, you know, they ask, are kids in foster care different from the ones who are? Yes. Yes, we are. We are different, but it's no fault of ours. You know, that's how we should be approached. Like it's not our fault. No, we have to check ourselves. And as alumni, we have to speak up. We have to tell our stories and the real stories, the other side to that story, because everything is a cause and effect. So we need to say what the causes are so they don't think we're just acting out for nothing. And I know my team is going to share more on the topics related to, you know, removing stigmas, empowering youth and alumni, and the importance of telling our stories and peer voices and changing the narrative, and what we're doing as an organization to empower and support this mission, because I feel like that's what it is. You know, it's a mission to change a long time, deeply embedded stigma, not just changing the minds of us, but the minds of the people in our community, and most important, the minds of the youth who is still in the system, still being affected by these stigmas, still thinking that they're bad or they're a problem child because they reacted to something that was out of their control. And they're not bad, and they're not. And so yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, in reality, they are, you know, they are children. We were children at that time. And even thinking back for myself, I'm sure you guys can think the same thing as you're going through those steps, or you're being moved from house to house. You don't really know what's going on. You're just doing what the adults are telling you. And it gets to the point where they're telling you to do so much that you're just, you're following, you're going with the motions. And so then when those same people, when you get angry or frustrated or upset, when they are telling you, oh, so you're a bad kid, well, you're the only adults around. Like, I'm going to believe you. So then now I'm going to be that bad kid. For me, I found sports, and that's what kind of took me away from, living in a circle of like, thinking about my biological family, thinking about where am I going? What am I going to do when I'm 18? What is going on in my life right now? I don't even know these adults, and going from place to place to place like that is extremely confusing. And our emotions do need to be recognized, and they do need to be talked about in an empowering manner. We don't need to be put down for having normal emotions and thoughts and feelings that any other person would have. So we don't need to be viewed that way. So I'm just going to continue on. So these are some of the ways we can change stigmas and how people view children in care, as well as the kids view themselves. And that's a big thing, is these kids don't need to be viewing themselves as anything less than great. They shouldn't be talked down to in any way, shape, or form like that. So I'm going to turn the conversation towards Carrie. She's our executive director, and I'm going to let her tell you how we contribute changing these stigmas and changing the narrative of youth in care and for alumni of care. Carrie, if you please take over.
Thanks, Nate. So I had planned to say what is Foster Strong and give a long spiel of how our team got brought together. And I told my team earlier that I feel like every time I talk about it, something new comes out. And as we got on here and I'm listening to my teammates talk, just the message that's coming through is this feeling of we were messaged that we were bad as kids. We were messaged that our feelings were not safe and welcome in these spaces, our hard feelings of anger, sadness, grief, whatever. And with that comes the feeling of isolation and that feeling of being lonely. And so really what I want to say just up front before I go into my spiel of what is Foster Strong and how are we changing the narrative is that Foster Strong is a movement. And like Slam said, Foster Strong is a mission that we want to build something where no child is struggling with those feelings of I'm alone. And we want to help parents, prospective parents, adoptive parents, kinship caregivers, child welfare professionals. We want to help you by telling you that this was not helpful to us. When you hear Slam talk about the emotions and feeling like anger wasn't welcome, that's not helpful to a kid. And so what we want to do is be a resource so that you can take these little gems that we're giving you and hopefully that helps you with your kid. And hopefully that kid then feels like they have a safe space to express everything that they're feeling and that they feel like they're not alone in this. So how did Foster Strong get started? We just launched this past May. We haven't even been here and around for a year, so we're quite a baby organization. But really, the roots of it began with the movie Instant Family. And for those of you who have not seen Instant Family, it is a family comedy about a couple who is a little bit older and wants to have kids and decides that they want to foster and adopt. And this movie is a really uplifting movie. It's hilarious. It's got a great cast in it. And it is one of those feel-good movies where you walk out of the theater smiling and hugging whoever's around you. And so when this movie came out, it was loosely based off of the director and screenwriter, Sean Anders. Shout out, Sean. We know you're out there in the internet verse supporting us, and we appreciate it. But it was loosely based on Sean and his wife, Beth's story. And when he was launching this movie and doing all these screenings of it and traveling around the country, he started meeting all these people. And one, the movie was getting such a positive response. For those of us who were in the steep of the movie launch and in the community, everyone loved it. And leading up to the movie, I don't know if you all remember this, but I can remember talking to other professionals in the child welfare sphere, and they were saying, oh, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous about what the movie is going to say and how it will portray kids in foster care. And is it going to be another one of those movies? And it wasn't another one of those movies. It did such a fantastic job of highlighting the love that comes from families, no matter how the family is created. And so when Sean was touring and he started to meet all of these people, and shout out to Mairead, who was a consultant on that movie and really helped nail down the foster youth voice and perspective from her own lived experience and expertise. And shout out to Candy Marie, who did the same, who represented youth who are in foster care and have the dream of going to Hollywood. She is our star on the team and was an actress in the movie. So you'll have to check it out and see if you can spot both her and Mairead are in it. Anyhow, when they were traveling and promoting the movie, there were these voices coming up to Sean and to others and saying, you know, I really appreciated this movie. I was also in foster care, but I never talk about it. Or I was in foster care, but I'm embarrassed about it, or I'm ashamed about it. And you know, this movie really helped. And it struck Sean that why were these people embarrassed or ashamed about being in foster care? Because what he saw was the resilience and the strength that came from people that were in foster care. And so I was going to say that was the start of Foster Strong, right? That it started with that movie and it started with that tour, which then eventually led to him and another consultant on the movie, Allison Maxon, getting our band together to have this alumni-led, alumni-driven organization who really can change the narrative. And yes, that was the start. But truly the start of Foster Strong dates back years and years and years to the age-old narrative in Hollywood that is foster care. The kids that are coming out of foster care are the villains. The kids that are coming out of foster care are the psychopaths, are the serial killers. I like to use the example of Law and Order SVO. If you watch that show, it is always the kid that was in foster care that is starting the trouble, that is the one that's arrested, that is your troublemaker. And that narrative has just been pushed forward year after year after year, decade after decade after decade. And the message that it sends to kids that are in care is that they're wedded to their trauma and that their past really defines them to the point of what their future will look like. And so what Foster Strong is doing is you have a group of 9 of us, all who experience foster care, all from across the country. You've got Candy in California, Mairead in Colorado, Nate in Oregon, Slam in Florida, me in DC. We're all across the country. We all have a different foster care story, but we're all cut from the same cloth that is foster care. And what we're trying to do is create this beautiful quilt of our own stories, of sharing our own stories, of being authentic, of being vulnerable, in an effort to really empower kids that are currently going through the system, alumni who are on the other side, to empower them that you have nothing to be ashamed of, that foster care was not your fault, that there's nothing for you to be embarrassed of, that you're not wedded to your trauma, that your past doesn't define your past, that your past does not define your future, and doing that by our own examples of we're now at a place where we look back and see that foster care helped to contribute to the resilience and the strength that we have today. So our mission is based around storytelling, and we believe that by storytelling, we're building a community to help people to not feel alone, to help them to find their own voices, find their own healing, because truly in us telling our stories, we're finding our healing. We are moving from being a victim of the system to being a fighter, to being warriors. Truly, what Candy says, we are foster warriors. We are standing on the mountain and saying, we did it and you can too. And we want to help you up and we are rooting for you. We are your champions. And, for too long, it has been all about the statistics. All you hear when you're going through the system is these poor outcomes. So you have Hollywood telling you that you're bound to be the serial killer, villain, psychopath. And then you have the system showing you that only 3% of youth who age out are going to graduate from college. And 59% of women who age out by age 19 will be pregnant. And 78% of the men who age out are going to end up in jail or prison at some point in their life. And we're here at Foster Strong because it's not about the statistics. It's not about all those poor outcomes. It's about the stories of triumph that have been for way too long silenced. They've not deserved the volume they deserve. They've not gotten the volume they deserve. They've not gotten the platforms they deserve. And that's what we are building. And so we hope that by doing that alongside you all in partnership, that we're going to help to stomp out the narratives of fear, of shame, of embarrassment, because truly there's no place for that. These individuals on this call are some of the most strong and resilient individuals I know. And that's the case for so many of the people I have met who have also been through foster care. So through storytelling, through sharing our hearts, we hope that we are rewriting a new narrative, one where we're in the seat with the author pen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie. And I think you made a really good point of we do need to take our stories and we need to be able to express them and take our own narrative without others, writing papers about us, keeping track of our behaviors, because they're only keeping track of behaviors that are negative. Which as an adult, you can go back and get all your paperwork and it looks like you were a horrible child, but they don't talk about how happy you were, how, joyful you were, how loving you were. And that's what we're here to tell you is like, we are great people. And there's millions of us like that. And so we are going to be taking our narrative back. I'm going to say this confidently because it's our lives and we need to get this movement going because these kids, these alumni, they don't need to be talked about like they're anything less than great. And so I'm going to kind of move forward. I have a question for you, Mairead. I want to know the importance of pure voices.
Great. Thank you, Nate. Hi, everybody. Yeah, like Nate said, today I'm going to be talking about the importance of peer voices, but I wanted to start by telling a little bit about my story or experience in the foster care system. Growing up, it seemed like everybody just felt bad for me. And I was a kid and I was going through a lot of tough situations, and I definitely needed the comfort, but I didn't benefit at all from the pity. And it seemed like everywhere I turned, there was just these devastating statistics like Carrie and Slam were talking about. And it seemed like those statistics were going to dictate the rest of my future for me. And especially from the organizations that I thought that were there to help me, I feel like those were the ones that were always just like always going back to the statistics of the negativity. And so what ended up happening was that I started to believe that these stereotypes would determine the rest of my future. And because I did check a lot of the boxes, like I had a traumatic childhood, I had all these different placements, and I didn't know where I was going to end up in the future. And honestly, I felt confused a lot of the time. I didn't know if I would ever see my family again or if I would see them next week. I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't know where I was going to go to school. So these people, whoever they were probably right. I'd probably end up homeless or in jail. And just all of this really made me hate being a foster kid. I felt so much shame about myself, and I was just embarrassed all the time because it seemed like everybody else around me also put those labels on me and saw what my future was going to be. And it didn't matter what I was doing because I always had that label as foster kid. I didn't understand what was happening or how long it was going to happen for. And it just really made me not like myself. But then one day, I just realized that I graduated high school, I graduated college, I worked on the movie Instant Family. I have a great job that I love. I have friends and family and mentors that support me. And I definitely don't need to feel sorry for myself. And I don't need anybody else to feel sorry for me. I'm happy in my life, and I'm proud of my experiences in foster care because they made me who I am today. At the same time, it would have been very helpful if I had somebody to look up to who had gone through similar experiences and made it out all right. Because like who makes the statistics? You know, they kind of seem arbitrary to me. I don't know, but and I understand that there are organizations that feel the need to tug on the heartstrings of donors. And I'm not trying to knock anybody who works tirelessly to gain funding for these kids that don't really have anybody else rooting for them. But I just want to go back to what my teammates were talking about, and just that words really do matter, especially to children. And when you're told over and over and over again that there's a high probability that you're going to fail, you'll probably believe it, but that doesn't make it true. So what if we started to tell the truth? Because kids in the foster care system need to be told how resilient they are, because that's the truth. I know that when I was going through it, I didn't know that I was strong. It's just like after time, and like looking back and just knowing that I got through it, I must have had strength somewhere, but at the time I didn't know. So instead of my social worker telling me, I'm sorry, I need to move you somewhere else, or I'm sorry, your mom didn't show up to the visit, I wish they would have told me, like, this may hurt right now, but you're so strong for getting through this. You're so brave for starting a new school. But those words, I feel like, would definitely mean so much more if they were coming from somebody who had gone through a similar circumstance. Phrases like, I know it seems like tough situations keep happening, but you're building up so much strength that you'll be able to accomplish anything you want in the world. Wow, I'm so proud of you for getting through this. And don't worry, you can cry and be sad and be hurt, but your past does not define your future. Things like, I know you may feel different at school, but that's what makes you so special, and you can accomplish anything you want in the world. I feel like the more and more language like this is used, It not only helps remove the stigmas, but it contributes to building the inner confidence of kids in the system. I know that if I was told stuff like that, I would be able to come back at the bullies right away and say, no, I'm not unlovable. I love myself and I'm strong for getting through this. So you can't say anything to me. And then at the same time too, I feel like hearing these affirmations from peers, it helps kids believe that they're not alone. And they have people rooting for them that understand what they're going through. Just imagine the difference that would make. Because I know as a former foster youth, I can attest that I definitely would have benefited from words like that. That would have made all the difference. But I'm very proud of the work that Foster Strong does, because we're telling everybody in the system, like, hey, we lived that too, and we made it out okay. More than okay, in my opinion. I think all of us, we're all doing exceptionally well. But just all of this, it made me realize how important peer voices are. And no matter how much time of my life that I've spent running away from the label as foster kid, now I feel like it is my duty to embrace the title for the kids that are currently in care. And honestly, this whole experience has just been very rewarding for me, because I really spent like the majority of my life just being ashamed of who I was, of things that I couldn't change and that were out of my control. But now I'm just embracing my past, because it led me to where I am today. It made me who I am. And I'm so proud of my strength and my resilience. And I'm really proud that I'm able to use my voice to advocate for the kids that are currently in care. So now I kind of wanted to throw it out to my team and ask if there's anybody else that wants to share why they think it's important to be an advocate for current youth in care.
Well, I'll take this one because I'm pretty passionate about it. I think, being an alumni and knowing what these kids have gone through and having that personal experience, it's easier for me to relate to them and, encourage them and let them know that, life continues. It goes on, it may be rough now, but it's not going to be rough forever. And I wish I personally had, somebody in my position talking to me when I was younger, because I didn't have anybody. I had my peers, but, we didn't even talk about our own individual lives or anything that was going on. I was living in a group home. We worked out together. We did like basic little things, but we never actually discussed things with each other. And we are trying to change that narrative where it is okay to open up and express, because there is that understanding coming from your peers. And whether, you're, in elementary school, middle school, high school, or you're an alumni, it's like you still need that ability to open and express yourself and have somebody understand where you're coming from. I think it's extremely important. And I think the position that we're standing in right now is going to be eye-opening, knowing, if, kids are going to be watching this, or other alumni is going to be watching this, and they can open up to us and talk to us. I couldn't ask for anything more. It's going to change the narrative. It's going to change the future of, children in care. And, that's what we're all working towards. So I'm going to move forward a little bit here. If I can pass this over to Candy, I have a question. So what can we do in order to change the narrative in more of a direct level, I guess? I know we kind of been generally talking about it, but if you can kind of just take over and give us your own point of view on this.
First of all, I just want to say that it's just so great to, one, be a part of an amazing family of other foster youth that are kicking ass and taking names. I hope I can say the A word, because I did. I'm the crazy one of the crew. But it's just so bomb, right? To be around other people like that you can relate to. I think that what we've done alone, and I just hope that this is an example that you guys have already taken away from listening to our workshop. There's something about being around people who get it, right? I think that is so empowering in and of itself. And I remember when Foster Strong first formed, and I remember how it was to kind of like first start to get to know each other, and just to see what we have all become and what we've brought out of each other has been extremely powerful. It's really shown us that where we come from, what we've been through, it doesn't define us. You know, it shows that like there are other people like you that are going through the same thing, if not worse, but are getting up every day and still moving forward. You know, like this group has truly shown that you can change the narrative in your own way and you can be exactly who you are. Before I move on to my section of the workshop, I first want to shout out everybody that came to support us today, all of our foster warriors. I know Carrie has been shouting me out about that foster warrior word all day. So I want to shout out everybody, all of you participants that are joining us right now. Thank you. We're going to switch the tone up just a little bit. So during this segment, I want to play a game called Conversations with My Younger Self. We talked about changing the narrative so consistently throughout this conversation. And a lot of us believe, even you, I'm sure, that in order to truly change the narrative, we must first change how we view ourselves. What you think about yourself is what you bring about. Law of attraction, all that is real, trust me. So in order to show the world our worth, we must first truly understand our own. So I developed this mini game show addressing some of our most common childhood memories, right? Because I think that a lot of what we went through, a lot of those traumatic experiences have truly shaped us. It's made us into the warriors. It's made us into the powerful individuals that you see when you look in the mirror. So this is how this is gonna go. I'll either throw out a topic and the first person to raise their hand takes the floor. All right, so I need all of y'all that's watching right now to be my eyes and my ears because you're the judges and we're gonna see who's gonna raise their hand first. Or what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go to each panelist and give them the opportunity to answer. All right, so the first warrior to make it to 5 points wins. Does that make sense? How my warriors feeling? You guys ready? Carrie, Slam, Raid, Nate, audience, y'all ready for this game? Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's build the momentum. You guys ready? Okay, you guys are listening. Everybody's unmuted. All right, so the first question is worth 2 points. What's your favorite childhood memory? Okay, I think I saw Marae throw a hand up first. If you guys saw somebody throw their hand up first, throw it into the chat, engage with us. So I think it was Marae. All right, Marae, what was your favorite childhood memory?
Okay, so I remember I was in a foster home and my foster parents, they had a biological child and he was very athletic and I just wasn't athletic at all. And they tried to put me in sports and it's just like I was coming in last every single time. But then they put me in this program called Junior Lifeguards in Huntington Beach. And I loved it. It was the greatest thing ever. We just spent all day at the beach for the whole summer. And I learned how to like swim in the ocean and it was exercise. But it was fun for me who wasn't athletic. And it was, when I look back on my childhood, that was the most fun I've ever had.
I love it. Okay. And if you guys have childhood experiences that you want to share, make sure you drop it in the chat. All right. Let's all talk about these experiences together. Okay. So the next question is going to be worth 1 point each. And I'm going to give each panelist an opportunity to answer. Let's start with, let me see who's on their toes. Let's start with Slam.
All right. I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. How were you underestimated growing up and how did that make you feel?
The thing for me is that I was underestimated as far as I guess education wise. You know how when you're in foster care, you move around a lot and your records get lost, your school records get lost, your paperwork get lost, and sometimes you end up repeating grades or classes or subjects that you've already taken, but you got to take again, things like that, or you're just not really focused on school. And so my thing was, I felt like I was dumb or stupid because I missed a lot of the basics when I was going. Either I missed them, I forgot them, or my head was just somewhere else when I was sitting in that classroom when they was doing them. So, when I got to high school and stuff like that, I kind of felt like I didn't like to ask questions. You know, I didn't like to get help because I felt like I was dumb and I couldn't tell people I was in foster care. And that's why I don't know some of this stuff, because I missed some of the basics, because like you said, I'm not telling nobody that, because then that's going to become a whole thing. So like I used to say to people, like now when they be like, oh, you're so smart, I used to be like, no, I'm not smart. I'm just hardworking. You know, I was never smart, pick it up easy, you know, those people who could miss every class and for some reason take the test and throw off the whole curve by getting 100. Just messes me up. But anyway, didn't have to study not once, didn't have to go to no class, but they just knew it. You know, I wasn't smart like that. I was one of them kids who went home and reread my book 2 or 3 times because I didn't want to ask questions and I didn't want to get behind and I didn't want to be looked at as stupid when, you know, and that's the side when I'm saying the whole stories, because yeah, my teacher looking at me like I'm slow or like I'm uneducated. And even when I talk, you know, like I used to have a real bad speech impediment, and even still now I struggle with, you know, pronouncing certain things. I gotta take my time and whatnot, but it's okay. It's a work in progress. I'm doing it. But it made me, as I was growing up, like I said, the teachers, they looked at me like I was slow, not seeing that I'm not slow. It's just I missed out on a lot, and it wasn't my fault that I missed out on it. And when I got older, it held me back from, you know, wanting to do good in school, because it's like, I'm not going to be able to do good. You know, I could barely do high school. What makes me think I can do college? You know, I barely made it through that. So it just made me feel like I wasn't capable or able to succeed when it came to education and it came to books in school and things like that. And it made me see that I was going to have to be a person who was just going to have to work harder than everyone else, because I wasn't going to have that mental or you know, knowledge, that type of knowledge to help me through it. But that was then. I don't feel that way no more.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, I was definitely then, because you're a wordsmith now, and I don't think anybody in here would challenge you to a cipher, because poetry, the way that you write it. Okay, all right, let's see who's next. Carrie.
Great. I think one of the ways I was underestimated, or maybe just more stereotyped, was I definitely was one of the kids who started cussing first, and was definitely an outspoken and loud kid. I know, me? Cuss words? Never. And I remember just now recalling like parents of my friends saying like, I don't really want you hanging out with Carrie. And like, you know, there were friends I could hang out with at school, but I couldn't hang out with like outside of school. And it was like, you know, their parents were influencing and driving that. And I look back and laugh, because you know what? Like, I'm in DC, I've got a great job, I'm winning at life. And then some of those parents, their kid who said their kids couldn't hang out with me, their kids are in jail, their kids are locked up, their kids are on drugs. So, oh, how the tables turn.
Call them out, Carrie. Call out season, baby.
I love it. Well, I'm surprised that when you said the cussing, I was like, not Carrie. Carrie was the bad.
Oh yeah, I was cussing on the bus. I was getting green slips and white slips. The best place
to do that on the bus.
Oh, definitely on the bus. Okay, all right. Let me see who's hiding right now. Nate.
All right.
Ready?
You never catch me hiding, but I definitely relate with Slam. I know you came from a little bit of a smaller town, and that feeling of, you know, being behind, you know, your peers or feeling dumb. I definitely got that. And I grew up in the Orange County area in California, you know, big school, but my main focus wasn't necessarily on my classes. I've always been very good with relationships and building relationships and friendships with people. And, you know, my interest was focused on sports and those. So I did get viewed as being slower in class because I was, you know, talkative, I'm a little disruptive, but my home life was disruptive and, you know, a little chaotic. So when I came to school, it was a time for me to be myself and really enjoy myself, because when I was at home, I had to be more of an adult. I had to take care of, you know, my little cousins. I had, you know, all this chaos going on. And so I definitely get where you're coming from, Slam. Like, I had to work my way up. I had to, you know, start studying more. I had to start rereading things. And it was just to prove everybody wrong that, like, I'm not dumb. I just have to do things my own way. And a lot of us have to do that. And so as I got, you know, went from elementary school into middle school, I skipped a grade because I was so tired of people viewing me as dumb and viewing me as like this obnoxious, loud kid that I had to like really like put it in myself, like, I'm not going to allow these people to call me this anymore. I'm not going to let them view me like this anymore. And so, you know, even to this day, I'm still very focused on, you know, educating myself and, you know, bettering myself. But it really, for, you know, almost all of elementary school, it really brought me down, on top of, you know, social workers telling me that I'm a bad child. You know, my family is a bad family is what the school would tell us. Like, all the kids are chaotic. And, you know, I think I'm at the point now, and I've been at the point where I've proven all those people wrong. You know, I've left that area. I have a great life out here in Oregon. You know, I have a beautiful house, girlfriend, animals. Like, I feel like I've proven everybody wrong that's ever said anything negative about me or my intelligence.
And you know why? It's because you're foster strong.
It's because I'm foster strong and I'm unbelievably resilient.
You're unbelievably resilient. You're damn right.
Yeah.
Okay, Mairead Greene. So Mairead is in the lead, guys, okay? Mairead is in the lead. Mairead, what do you say?
Okay, how I feel like I was underestimated growing up was because I felt like I couldn't do anything because I didn't have parents to support me. I felt like all of my friends, like they relied, because when we were younger, they relied on their parents for everything, and then everything that they wanted, their parents gave it to them. And it's like I was kind of underestimated because like there were times where like I couldn't do things because I didn't have a ride, or I didn't have the extra money or something like that. And it made me feel like, at the time, it made me feel like, oh yeah, can't do anything without parents. But now I feel like I can do anything I want because I've learned such a young age to do it on my own. And so, yeah, now I like that quality, that I don't need anybody else to help me, and I'm happy doing everything by myself.
I love it. That's one thing we do gain as kids who went through the foster care system, is independency. Now,
Yes.
Mairead is sitting independently at the top with 3 points, and the rest of you guys have 1. So this next question is worth 3 points. All right. So that's going to give somebody an opportunity to be tied, actually, to be the lead over everyone with 4 points. All right. You guys ready? All right. Just got to make sure y'all ready. All right. Name 3 things you loved about your younger self. Carrie.
I need a buzzer. I need a button right here and make it so much easier. I love that as a kid, I was really fearless and adventurous, and I was called bossy, believe it or not, but I think it helped me to be a leader as an adult. So those are 3 things I loved about my younger self.
You're such a boss. All right. Okay. So the next question. This one is worth 2 points. Okay. So right now, Carrie's in the lead. Mairead is trailing behind, and Slam and Nate have 1 point. Okay. So this next question will give you 2 points. How has your childhood shaped who you are today? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Nate.
All right. So how it shaped me is like, I mean, I grew up with a huge family before I was placed into care. I was originally placed into care at 2 years old, and I still lived with my grandparents until a little bit later. But my grandparents, you know, were always very honest with me. You know, my dad was always in prison, my mom was an addict. And so my grandparents always gave me the option of, you know, visiting them, connecting with them. So they always gave me that independence of, how do you want your life to play out? So I've always been very independent, whether it was, you know, being a little kid and walking, you know, 2 miles to the skate park to be there all day. You know, that is the good part. The bad part is I'm a little stubborn, you know, which has its positives, it has its negatives, but I'm going to do what I want to do or what I feel is right. And I think that's kind of what's got me here today. You know, I found myself in situations I didn't think was right. I was stubborn enough to be like, I'm not going to put up with this. I'm done. I'm like, I need to do what's right for me. And, you know, it's progressed my life to where it is now. And if you're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess the ugly part would be, I'm still a little stubborn. You know, I'm still always trying to figure out things my way. I'm more open to listening to my peers, or especially you guys, or alumni, knowing that you have my background, but I still do have that little, stubbornness. So if we want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think the bad and the ugly would be stubborn, but it's also good.
Well, let me give you guys some good, the bad, and the ugly on these results, okay? So Carrie is currently leading with 4 points. Nate and Mairead are tied at 3, and Slam is trailing behind with just 1. Now, this next question, this is our bonus round question, okay, guys? And this is going to give somebody the opportunity to either take the lead or take this baby home. Are you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Everybody in the chat, are you ready? Okay.
Yeah.
Looking back, wait. Let me finish the question. Okay.
Oh my God, yeah.
Looking back, technically the rules state that the host has to finish the question before one can answer. Sorry. Looking back and knowing what you know now, what words of encouragement would you give your younger self? I'll repeat the question. Looking back and knowing what you know now, what words of encouragement would you give your younger self? Nate, for the win. Nate.
I'll take this win. So as far as words of advice, I think as a kid, I felt like I was the only one kind of going through those things, and I would isolate myself a lot. I was very much a people person, but when I did have any of those emotions of confusion, frustration, jealousy of other kids in the neighborhood, I would isolate myself, and I'd really beat up myself, for some reason blaming myself for my parents' actions, for my family's actions, I really blamed myself for everything. And I think looking back at it now, I just encourage myself, it's nothing that you did, you're just a kid, you're just figuring out life. You were given these cards and you just got to play them to the best of your ability.
All right, guys. Now the moment of truth. I need someone to cue my sound, cue my music. Who's going to be my music?
I can do the soul version of Jeopardy.
Okay, let's go. You do that and I'll tally the results. Okay, I need everybody in the chat. Shout out your favorite competitor and
or ask a question in the QA, Oh, so my soul for Jeopardy. No, 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 dun, 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 dun.
All right, and we're back, guys. We have a winner. We have a winner. Okay. At 1 point, we have Slam. Mairead, 3 points. Carrie, 4. And Nate, you win! You
Go Nate.
So we all need a good win, you know what I mean? All right, so as of right now, we're gonna be slowly transitioning into our Q&A. Right now, if you've been watching, you've gotten to know us a little bit, and feel free to toss some questions into our comment box, the little Q&A box at the bottom. I just wanted to let you know that you guys can check us out at www.youarefosterstrong.org. You can check us out on Instagram, youarefosterstrong, or Facebook. You can even leave us some comments at Foster Strong. We have a podcast as well, which is Foster Strong, and we do have 14 episodes out. So if there's anybody here that you're interested in, you can go and listen to their story, get to know them a little more in depth. I know I didn't really get to talk about my story too much individually, so I am on there as well as the rest of our group. If you're looking for any resources, help, or just need somebody to talk to, you can find us on any of those social medias. But right now I'm going to jump into the Q&A. So I'm going to start with you, Slam. If you can tell me, what is Foster Strong to you?
Foster Strong to me is just, it's kind of, and I think Mairead kind of touched on it as well, but Foster Strong to me is just that when we reclaim that foster kid title, and we claim it as our own, and we say that we're not going to be ashamed of the past or ashamed of the bad or the good, because we know that we couldn't really control a lot of the bad, And the good is what kept us focused. And so it's saying I'm no longer going to be ashamed of that. I'm no longer going to hide, but I'm going to accept who I am. I'm going to accept that as my identity because it is a part of who I am. And it's a strong part of my identity. You know, like we say, when we talk to people at on dates, or, you know, when we're meeting people, we say, you know, we can't say family. It's like when they ask us that question about that, our past is kind of that awkward silence. But the thing is, that past is a part of us, and it's a big part of us, our childhood. You know, everybody else talks about their childhoods. This is our childhood. And no, it doesn't look like everyone else's, but this is it. And this is why I am who I am. And it's saying, and being able to be whole is being able to claim all your identities and not feel away or shame about claiming any of them. No, I'm Black, I'm gay, I'm foster care kid, I'm female. These are all things that make me me. And I want to be able to be proud of all those things that make me me, despite what I went through or had to go through with those things, with those identities. You know, I still, when I came out, I still want to be able to accept this as who I am. And like Carrie said about that, you know, no regrets tattoo or whatever, that's what's crossed my chest, you know. I got foster care kid, foster strong on my chest, you know, not thug life. I got that foster kid life, you know what I mean? Tattooed on these orange, you know, but that's the real. It's just being able to do that, being able to feel confident and proud enough to be like, oh, my tattoo say foster care kid, baby. That's what took me through. That's my thing. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. And just knowing you, Slam, you know, I am just amazed, you know, that we connect so much, you know, just talking to you, and, you know, you're so powerful. Your voice is so powerful. I was saying earlier, like, I feel like I should just run around the building after you talk every time. I'm so excited. But Candy, if you don't mind, I want to ask you the same question. What is Foster Strong to you?
Foster Strong to me is, it's just walking unapologetically in who you are, what you've been through, and where you come from. It's holding your head high. It's saying, you know what, I'm different, I'm unique. I might be a little awkward. You know, I like to do my own thing, but that's okay. You know, Foster Strong is just walking in your truth, just like Sam said.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So if we can move forward to the next question, towards you, Carrie. What words of wisdom would you give to prospective parents looking to foster or adopt?
I would say if you are looking to foster or adopt, that one, that's amazing, that going through that process can bring so much love into your life and your home, and so much growth as a person and your capability to love another person. But one of my biggest pieces of advice is that before you enter into that, to really take some time to heal yourself and look at what hurts and hangups and trauma that you have not dealt with. You don't have to be a perfect person to foster or adopt. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that when we don't deal with that stuff, when we don't deal with our trauma, when we don't deal with our pain, we bleed on people who never cut us. And so I was adopted as a child, and quickly into my adoption, it fell apart. I thought I had my fairy tale ending, but unfortunately, my adoptive parents had a lot of their own trauma that was unhealed. And so when life got hard, they couldn't handle it. And when they were being brought to those hurts, hangups, traumas that they still had, it was easier for them to find coping mechanisms and drugs or an alcohol than it was for them to just work through that, because everything had built up so much. So my advice is heal yourself, heal yourself, heal yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Mairead, same question.
My advice to those looking to foster or adopt is to not be afraid of adopting a teenager through foster care. Because I was adopted as a teenager, and I was adopted right before I went to high school, and just that gift of having a consistent place to live throughout high school, like, really gave me everything I needed to be a successful adult. And I really only lived in my parents' house for a couple years, but they are my family forever, and I'm so grateful for them. And so, yeah, I know that there is a lot of stigma about adopting a teenager, but I think that it would be very rewarding just to give that gift to a child of having a consistent home, even if it's just for a couple years, so that they're able to really work towards their future.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and I get what what you're saying, because I was adopted at the age of 20. So I went into care around the age of 2. I, aged out at 18. My foster parents told me, get out of here, essentially. And I moved in with a family who I had known since I was living in the group home, and she was actually my teacher. And so when I aged out, I'm calling everybody. She ends up answering, says it's totally fine if I move in. I lived with them for 2 years, and then they adopted me at 20 because they wanted to make sure that I was comfortable joining the family, taking on the last name, and being a permanent, family member. And that was something, it took me about 2 years to really figure out, what do I exactly want? Like, am I just going to leave California completely, and start a whole new life by myself at 18? And I'm glad I didn't, because I did. I lived with them from 18 to 20. They adopted me, and they are my family for life. I have, even more brothers and sisters now. I have an amazing mom and dad, and I encourage, people to take in teens, because, they have hormones, everybody goes through it. We've all gone through it, but they are still human beings, and you got to get to them before they age out of the system. And sometimes there is nobody left there for you. And it's very important that, we were able to get to these kids before they feel like, life is essentially over when it's just begun. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next question. I guess this one's a little directed towards me. So it's, why do you think it's important for alumni to advocate for foster youth versus those with no personal experience? And that's something I'm very passionate about, because I have now had the chance to go out and look for kids and alumni that are going through the emotions, still processing the emotions as an adult, and kids that are still in care that don't know what their future looks like. And having somebody that's an alumni, having somebody that's been through the experiences, can make or break, a decision that you're going to make that may change the rest of your life. So, having somebody that's in any situation, whether it's sports, education, relationships, anybody that has been through the same situation as you, I don't think there can be much better advice coming from anybody else. And so that's just, yes.
Sorry, Nate. I kind of just wanted to add on to the end of what you're saying, just because I feel like another part of Foster Strong is unbelievably resilient. And I feel like it doesn't necessarily matter if you're in foster care, if you weren't in foster care, but if you just know of that, building that strength over and over and over again, and keep breaking down barriers and keep getting through trauma or getting through a tough situation, and from a young age. I feel like it's hard if you weren't in foster care to understand, but I definitely know that there's so many other people that have gone through that without being in the system. But that's just that sort of strength that we highlight as a team.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for chiming in, Mairead. Next thing, I'm going to move over to Candy. I have a question for you. It is, what are tales of trauma to triumph to you?
That's a great question, Nate. I think for me, one of the things that I think about is, I think a lot of people think just because you put a roof over somebody's head, and they're getting this, little monthly stipend, that's all they need. Well, that's not. A lot of kids need love. When I think about my own personal foster care experience, I didn't have a good relationship with my foster parent, and I was in that home for a long time, and she never said, "I love you." Love is a verb. It's a verb. It's something that, if I think about my childhood traumas, I think that's probably one of the most traumatic things, is that I never received a hug, is that I was never told that I love you, and the only memory that I actually held on to of somebody saying that was my biological mother. She would say that to me all the time, and I held on to that, and I said, okay, that's my example of love. That's what I'm going to take. And I just want to encourage parents that are listening, even kids that have gone through care with a lack of love. you know, to develop, like, create your own definition of what love means for you, and create your own tradition of love. And that's what I've decided to do. I've decided that I'm going to be the one that tells my siblings that every single time I talk to them. If nobody says it to them, they're going to hear it from me. Even my friends, I love you. We got to normalize saying, I love you, not just love you. And, you know, no, I love you. So we need to normalize like that, creating a space for that. Kids need more than just a home and a roof over their head and money and all that other. They need love.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Candy. For our last question, I'm going to shoot this your way, Slam. And in your opinion, has the system changed since you were in care?
No. In my opinion, I don't think the system has changed since I've been in care. And then that kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, which is the emphasis on the system. I don't think the system has changed, but I do think people who are involved in the system now are people who are in our communities, you know, our social workers, caseworkers, foster parents, people who are engaging. I believe they're changing. I do believe we are getting better people. We're getting more supportive people, more healed people who come into the system and helping. So I feel like the people in the system are changing, but it takes more people to change a whole system. You know, a few handful of people can't change a whole system. It has to be a wave of people to change the system. And I feel like the way we're going to know when the system's changed, and the reason why I say it hasn't changed, is because I still hear the same things. When I go work with kids in foster care, when I speak to people who work in the foster care system, it's the same stuff I've heard when I was younger. It's the same people, same stigma. These stigmas still are here, and these stereotypes are still are here. The way that we are moving kids and all of that whole procedure, it still exists and it's still the same. And I feel like because people still talk about it, and because kids are still saying how they are ashamed of being in foster care, I feel like, no, the system hasn't changed. Because if the system did change, then we won't have kids ashamed anymore, because they shouldn't be ashamed for being in this system, because it's not their fault and it's nothing on what they did. So the fact that we still have kids being blamed and kids still feeling how they are, and still alumni feeling like they can't speak, no, the system hasn't changed. People are changing though. And the more people that we get to change, the more people we get on board, the more people we add to this movement, then we can change the system. You know, but you have to start with the people. So I'm happy with that, because it starts with changing the people, and then the people change the system, because the people control the system. So no, but the people have changed. So it gives me hope and faith in that this system is going to be changing very soon.
Awesome.
And now
Very
we're
well.
foster strong here, so it's definitely going to be changing.
Yeah, very well said. I appreciate you. I appreciate you and everything you do, Slam, as well as Carrie, Candy, Mairead, and the rest of our team. We're going to be wrapping up here. We're coming up to the end of our session.
Hey, Nate.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw this. There's questions coming in from multiple places. So we actually have 2 more questions from the audience that we haven't yet got to. I'm happy to just read those quickly and see if any of us feel compelled to address those questions.
Yeah,
The
please,
first
because it's not popping up on my end.
Perfect, no problem. So the first one is just, at what age did you know that you wanted to create a change for the foster care system? This person says that they know for many alumni of foster care, it can be sort of traumatizing or triggering to be in this type of work. So by making this decision to get in the fight is a big one and an incredible one. So just do any of you want to answer that question?
I'll go for it first. So I realized that I wanted to be in the system when I was in my 20s. So when I first went to school and stuff, I was like, you know, I'm gonna be a writer. You know, I'm gonna write down my story. I'm gonna do all of that. I didn't want to be a social worker, even though it was in the back of my head, because I'm a person like, I just want to help them. I see what they're going through. I want to help, but I didn't want to be a social worker because exactly what you said, Carrie. I was like, I'm not ready to deal with that. I'm not ready to see these kids. Most importantly, I wasn't ready to deal with social workers. I had a huge bias against social workers, against child welfare system in general. Like I said, I had to check myself. You know, I had such a huge bias. I did not like social workers. Someone told me they're a social worker. Boom, I already got a view of what you are. You know, I didn't want to be that. You know, I didn't want to become my enemy in a sense. You know, my enemy was social workers, this system, and I didn't want to become a part of my enemy or be a product or be, you know, someone engaging with my enemy. You know what I mean? So it wasn't until I started meeting other people who worked in the system, you know, working with kids in the system, seeing that some of the same stuff I went through was some of the same stuff these kids were doing. When I finally was like, you know what? I can't, you know, if I'm supposed to be me, it's the person who just, you know, want to spread love, want to help people. I can't sit around and look at my own people, these young kids going through exactly when I go through, when I can try to do something, where I can try to fix it. And I'm one of them people, I don't like to complain and not do nothing. I don't like to just sit around and complain about something. If I'm going to complain, I'm going to actually make action as well. You know, it's one thing I used to say, I have in a piece where it says, you know, I learned to talk less and move frequently. Because it's true. Like, I'm not saying much, but I'm moving and I'm going. So once I started seeing that the system wasn't changing, that's what kind of propelled me to say, okay, I want to be a social worker now because I want to help. But what I had to realize, like Nate was saying, I had to realize how to do it my way. I didn't want to be a social worker their way. I didn't want to be their type of social worker. I wanted to be me with the title of social worker, me with the certification of a social worker, me with that those credentials of a social worker, so I can still be me in their system. Because I'm one of them infiltrating from the inside. I'm gonna get in. I want to learn all about my enemy, all about the thing that caused me stress, so then I can come back and I can change it. You know, that's what I see y'all laughing, but that's what that is. It's infiltrating from the inside. And I realized that that's how I was going to have to help. And it really was just seeing other people still going through stuff. And I just didn't like, couldn't see people suffer knowing that I could possibly do something. So. But I was going to say, when I did go into social work, my intro to social work teacher told us the first day of class, she said, for all of you trying to go into social work, here's the first thing you need to know. It's not about you anymore. It's no longer about you. It's no longer about you. The moment you said, same thing when you become a parent, it's no longer about you. You're saying you want to help others. So you need, like I said, you need to heal from yours, because if you try to bring that into what you're doing, you're not going to be any help. And so I had to do that first. And I think that's what took me so long to realize that, okay, now I do want to help. I had to heal first and I had to check myself.
That's good, Sam.
Just to add, I think for me, I spent a long time being ashamed of like who I was and where I came from, and trying to, you know, I didn't want nobody to know. I think like it wasn't cool when you was in high school to be a foster kid. So I spent a lot of time like just trying to like act like that wasn't a part of who I was, you know? So it was like the life I was living at home was completely different from the life that I was living at school. It was like two different versions. And I didn't even want to talk about it. When counselors came to the office, I would always look around to see who was watching or who was in the office, because I didn't want nobody to find out. So let me see, I think my second year of college, my sophomore year of college, is when I finally started to realize that I wanted to help change the system. And it was because I was in this meeting, I was joining this organization, and they asked me, they said, what is the hardest thing you ever went through? And I just started thinking about my story, and I broke down because nobody had ever asked me that before. And after I got through the tears, I said it. I was like, growing up in foster care. And that was the first time that I actually spoke up and told people about it. And after I cried and I finally got it out, the way that it felt, it was just so much healing just by saying it out loud to people who didn't know a damn thing about me, who didn't know a damn thing about growing up in foster care, you know? And their response was very shocking. Because a lot of times when you walk with your head held high, and a lot of us we walk with this strength about us, people don't know. They don't know unless you tell them. So the way that I felt after saying that, and then seeing the way that people reacted, it was like, man, somebody really cares what I have to say. Because I grew up feeling like nobody was listening and nobody gave a damn what I had to say. So it was at that point, after that meeting, while I was in college, I started to go to group homes and I started to speak. And just the healing that it gave me and that it gave those kids, I felt that sense of community. It was like, man, they just like me. And I realized how much they needed me, how much they needed to see somebody who was in college. Because statistically, as we all know, we've heard tons of these statistics that don't mean, that don't mean nothing before. Like, those statistics don't mean nothing, but we change the statistics, right? So me seeing how much it meant to them for them to see somebody like them going to college. And I was like, man. And then the simple fact that I had 3 younger siblings who looked up to me, like those are like my babies. I was like, okay, I gotta go and I gotta do this for them. And then I just saw how broken the system was. It was like, no, we gotta do something. We gotta change that. So that's where that came from for me.
That's good. That's so good. And I think, I would just add from the team perspective that after doing this work for however many months we have been doing this as a team, that I think one of the common themes is that a lot of us are just tired and exhausted of seeing the same old narrative play out that we lived years ago. The fact that it's still happening to kids, it's that quote, and I don't even know which president said it. I'm forgetting, but if not us, who? And if not now, when? And we can't sit on the sidelines anymore. And that's why we exist. That's why Foster Strong exists. That's why we're doing this work. So we do have a couple more questions, but we are at time. So Nate, I'll just kick it back to you to wrap us out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Alrighty. So just some takeaways, of our whole presentation. I know we kind of dropped a lot of information on you guys. But if there's just things to think about, it's, removing the stigmas and stereotypes of children in care and former foster care alumni. Another big thing is, how as a community can we remove these stigmas? It's a big one to think about. If you haven't been in care, just how you talk about people in care, how you talk to people in care, like we got to take away any stigmas and we got to just treat people like human beings. We got to debunk these misconceptions and learn how to empower. So that's something we all got to do as a team, something we got to do as a community. It's all nothing but love. And more importantly, something that I love is the importance of peer voices. I would not be here if I didn't hear from you guys when I was struggling, when I was questioning everything I was going through, when I called you, Carrie, and told you, I don't know if I can do this because I don't know if I'm the best person. And just having love and support and say, whatever you need, I'm there for you. Like, your team's there for you. Those peer voices, and knowing that, you've been in my position, whether it's, from our past, whether it's something we're currently doing in an event or anything, just hearing those peer voices and that positivity and that love really makes a huge difference in somebody's day. And then the last and most important thing is changing the narrative. And I think that's what we're all here for, is we're trying to change the way that things are narrated about us. It's not about, your social worker, your probation officer, your group home staff, your foster parent. It's not necessarily about how they're talking about you. We need to take this narrative back, and we need to tell you how we're feeling, where we're coming from, why we're feeling that way, and we need to be heard. So if you have any questions, you can leave them at youarefosterstrong.org. You can leave them here on the comment Q&A section, and we'll get back to you. Feel free to reach out to any of us. No matter where you are in the world, we are here for you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Follow us on Instagram. You are Foster Strong.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us.
This was fun today.
Thank you.
So
Bye.
fun.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye, guys.